Day 103 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. My name is Josh Bloom, although the woman at the DMV today says it's Joshua Adam Bloom. I'm just trying to help myself. People are not used to having other people lie to their faces. This is about the leader of the Trump administration, and it's about the people that the leader of the Trump administration has gathered around him in the second, theoretically final Trump administration. These people are okay with lying to your face because the lies they tell are the truth that they believe. It is so shocking to our systems to have people lie to our faces, and that is why the people who are willing to lie to our faces can accomplish what they set out to achieve when they do the lying. You can apply this to anybody who lies. It doesn't have to be just the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration. They are where they are because they can lie to our face. The same person who on TV said that parents will not be able to buy their children, quote unquote, 30 dolls this Christmas, that they only get to have 2 dolls, which is an incredibly out of touch statement on its own. But that same person said just a few months ago when he wanted your vote, how you will have so much more money, and I'm paraphrasing, but you know what the hell I mean, that you will have so much money that you won't know what to do with it. I can guarantee you he wasn't thinking about dolls. The followers of the leader of the Trump administration believe him, but it can apply to anyone in your life who will lie to your face. It can be a cheating partner, it can be a coworker, it can be a family member who will lie to your face because they've done it before. It becomes a way of life. Once you compromise your integrity that way, you are the person with the compromised integrity. Former Senator Al Franken's book Lies and the Lying Liars Who Tell Them. Prescient. Al Franken, who resigned from the Senate under pressure from his own party because of a photo where he pretended to grab a woman who was sleeping. He didn't grab her, but he pretended to grab her for a gag photo that wasn't funny. Not even the best comedian is funny all the time. Al Franken held himself accountable for this mistake and paid the price. Imagine if the leader of the Trump administration did the same thing. The outcome would be vastly different. And so, on day 103 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, I remind you of this fact of life about liars. You don't have to apply it to just the leader of the Trump administration whom you do not know. Apply it to the people you do know. Ignore them and ignore the Trump administration. Day 104 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. Seriously, I'm just trying to help myself. Speaking of seriously, I received a comment on Instagram that is not dissimilar from comments I often receive about this series, which is that I am taking the Trump administration and the leader of the Trump administration too seriously. Now, first of all, when you are telling someone else that they are taking something too seriously, or when you tell someone else that they are not taking something seriously enough, unless that is a person that you have gotten to know beyond a 3-minute video on the internet, then you are telling me something about yourself. You're not telling me anything about me. Frankly, I do not take life seriously enough. I am a survivor of trauma, and one of the ways I manage that trauma is to laugh at most things, including things I probably shouldn't laugh at. I grew up listening to and watching the intellectual and at the same time stupid comedy of Steve Martin, George Carlin, and Andy Kaufman, so I find the experience of existence absurd in concept and ridiculous in practice. When I take this tone here on 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump administration, it is to amuse myself. And I find commenting on the leader of the Trump administration to be an endless source of amusement. This is a net positive arising from a gross negative. I find it fun to behave this way, and if I am amusing anyone who is not me, let me know in the comments. You could say, "Hello, Josh. I wanted you to know that you amused me." It's always lovely to hear about that. If you do not choose to leave such a comment, well, I will suffer under the delusion that I am the only human being on the planet who is amused by myself. which is not only okay with me, but also in line with the concept I am laying out here. I do not take life too seriously. If that weren't the case, why would I make videos that only further my amusement about life? I would not. And so, in conclusion, here on day 104 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, I encourage you to also do and say the things to yourself that amuse you and make you laugh. And if you encounter other people in life who are also amused by you, hold them close. Please don't ignore that precious discovery. And do ignore, I don't know, the Trump administration? Day 105 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am not your father. I am just trying to help myself. Day 105 is May 4th. May the 4th be with you. I hope you enjoyed that fun allusion to Star Wars on day 105 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, because now I am going to the dark side. Ready? Have you noticed that supporters of the Trump administration, and the leader of the Trump administration don't seem to have any problem with the history of this quote-unquote great nation forcing immigrants into the country against their will to build America? Just some unfortunate truth dropping for you. We deserve this. We deserve a president who sits in the Oval Office looking over a stack of photos of himself holding a fake image of the knuckles of an immigrant he illegally deported to a prison in El Salvador, because that is what Americans have earned because of how America was founded. First through the G word on Native Americans, and then the S word on Africans who were forced into the country against their will. Now, the Trump administration and leader of the Trump administration want to force immigrants out of the country. This is history. We are history. This is why we deserve this. The G word and the S word have yet to be atoned for in 250 years. You know what country has had just a bit longer to figure its shit out? China. The leader of the Trump administration's trade war with China is a joke. China has existed for 5,000 years. China built a wall that is 13,000 miles long. The leader of the Trump administration built a fence that is 500 miles long. Mexico did not pay for it. We did. We are going to have to learn lessons the hard way in 2025. We elected the leader we deserve. We elected a leader who was not cared for growing up and therefore does not care for us. Do not expect respectful behavior from people who were never taught respectful behavior. Combine this reality with a life of financial privilege, a lack of self-examination and awareness, and a sociopathic inability to feel empathy, and you arrive at a well-oiled con man whose priority is trying to maintain a perception of himself as tough. We deserve this. But just like when we got grounded as kids for misbehaving, eventually the punishment was over. There is a way to make things right, and that is to live and lead by the golden rule and to elect leaders who live and lead by the golden rule too. The leader of the Trump administration is uniquely unreachable. His spell will be broken at the end of day 1,461 of ignoring the Trump administration. These are not the droids you're looking for. The Trump administration you will ignore. Day 106 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. I just finished listening to the excellent Talking Sopranos podcast. Yes, I am behind. This episode came out at the end of December 2021. It reminded me that the leader of the Trump administration envisions himself as a Tony Soprano type of figure. And I doubt he's even watched The Sopranos, but he has said that Goodfellas and The Godfather are two of his favorite movies. Maybe he thinks they're documentaries. The leader of the Trump administration and members of the Trump administration think they are tough like Tony, but the thing is, the premise of The Sopranos, which is arguably the best show that's ever been on television, the premise in and of itself is absurd, especially with what we now know as mental health issues have become more prevalent in the conversation than they were almost 20 years ago when The Sopranos first aired. You cannot therapeutically treat a psychopath, which is what Tony Soprano is as an unaliver for a living. How does that theme go? Woke up this morning, got myself a pew-pew. You understand my censorship for the sake of a family-friendly app. Unless it's in an institutional setting, meaning this person has been imprisoned, and in this case, probably for life, then you could probably work with them to make their understanding of who they are, what they are, and who they've been manageable. But in a setting where this person is leaving your office to continue their day of unaliving, it is pretty unlikely that any therapy would do anything but make them more comfortable with who they are as a person who unalives for a living. That being said, The Sopranos is an incredibly entertaining show, but unfortunately, the real life erratic behavior of the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration has effects and consequences that the US population has to contend with 24 hours a day instead of being entertained by for an hour a week. At least Tony Soprano could be counted on to show up to Dr. Melfi's office. The Sopranos went out on top with huge ratings and unanimous critical acclaim. The ratings for the leader of the Trump administration continue to fall, and the show looks like it will be canceled at the end of season 2. Until then, consider every day must not see Thursday, and continue to ignore the Trump administration. Day 107 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I am not a self-help guru. I'm just trying to help myself. You may have heard that Amazon was considering putting the cost of the leader of the Trump administration's tariffs right there on the product page where you buy something, and that the Trump administration and the leader of the Trump administration immediately went to war with Amazon, including the leader of the Trump administration calling up chief oligarch Jeff Bezos and spitting into the phone at him about it. The question has been asked, and the calculation is, does Jeff Bezos believe that the leader of the Trump administration and the Trump administration can do more damage to Amazon than the trade war itself will do to Amazon? The thing that is not being understood here is the pathology of the leader of the Trump administration. Jeff Bezos should be concerned about the person, Jeff Bezos, because his adversary in this case, also known as the leader of the Trump administration, is a sociopathic person. And it could be any sociopathic person who has some kind of power over you in your life. Maybe it's a boss, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a family member taking advantage of you. But in this case, it's someone who has the most power of any person on the planet at their disposal. Jeff Bezos should be concerned that this person, the leader of the Trump administration, could come after him personally. And I'm not just talking about saying bad things about him, which of course he will do. I'm talking about restricting Jeff's autonomy, kind of like how the leader of the Trump administration has restricted women's autonomy over their bodies, both through the government and through Bergdorf Goodman dressing rooms. This is what people who will not stand up against the leader of the Trump administration are concerned about. They are concerned about what he will do to them personally. It doesn't matter if you're a senator or a congressperson, Jeff Bezos, the electric car guy, or if you are the owner of all of the McDonald's franchises in the vicinity of the White House, and you decide you're going to tell the leader of the Trump administration that the soft serve machine is broken and that you're not going to sell him any burgers anymore. That would definitely piss me off, except he is interested in getting revenge personally. That is what needs to be understood. Every action comes from a place of wanting to hurt people personally. That is the mandate of a caged, fearful, angry animal. And what do you do when encountering a caged, fearful, angry animal? You don't get near it. You want to ignore it so it will ignore you. So ignore the Trump administration. Day 108 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration. I have a confession to make. I am not a self-help guru. I am just trying to help myself. I have a second confession to make, actually. I looked up some information about the Trump administration, hoping for bias confirmation. I was left in a difficult situation. The leader of the Trump administration met with the new Prime Minister of Canada in the Oval Office and explained that he no longer wants Canadian steel because he wants America to make its own steel. There are currently massive steel plants being built. Now, I need to defend myself and say I am not busy filling the nooks and crannies of my mind with the goings on of the Trump administration. I was scrolling. I heard this one line, and before my eyes started rolling, I focused them on the search bar and asked, "Are we building massive steel plants right now?" And the answer is yes. We are building massive steel plants right now. I accepted this instance of bias, and before I started wondering when these steel plants would be completed and operational, I realized there was an important lesson to learn from this, which is 1. I am not doing a good enough job ignoring the Trump administration when I'm busy looking up this information. And 2, there is no 2. I am grateful for this reminder that I need to continue to focus on the more immediately important aspects of life, and that this is the guiding force of this endeavor of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. As John Cougar once sang, little ditty about Jack and Diane, 2 American kids growing up in the heartland. This lyric reminds me of myself, except my name is Josh. I don't know anyone named Diane, and I grew up in New York. But I think you know what I mean. I knew that over 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, I was bound to make videos where I slip and get too deep in the weeds. Or too deep in the weirds, if you will. I do not need to know whether we are building steel plants. My grievances with the leader of the Trump administration are about him as a person and not whether he is telling the truth 100% of the time, lying 100% of the time, or more accurately, an 8% truth, 92% lies mix. Knowing the intricacies of steel plant construction has nothing to do with my personal happiness. So, on day 108 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration, here is a quick reminder. Take in information with more moderation, and even if it's for the sake of a rhyme, ignore the Trump Administration. Day 109 of 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration. I am not a self-help guru. I am somewhat of a Swiftie, and I'm just trying to help myself. Not interested is your friend. Not interested is a concept that those of us who have used dating apps, and when I say dating, that is a loose word, because on some of these apps, you're not doing any dating. It is a concept we must apply, and to keep it real, that others must apply to us. When you are looking to ignore the Trump administration and the leader of the Trump administration, using the not interested button on this app or any app like this app is an essential tool because you're telling your potential partner, and in this case, a potential piece of entertainment, not a potential piece of something else, that you are going to politely decline. And politely declining is what we're doing here because we're not looking to raise the temperature, we're looking to lower the temperature. And when you're looking to lower the temperature, when you decline, you need to decline in a way that lets the party being declined down gently, gracefully, and with respect for their feelings. This is why this series is called 1,461 Days of Ignoring the Trump Administration instead of something more aggressive. Like with a dating app, sometimes we are susceptible to being unable to say not interested. We are susceptible because maybe at the time we lower our standards to be quote unquote entertained, or just actually entertained without the quotes. It is something to practice saying you're not interested. It is something to learn. It is something that becomes muscle memory, and the only way something can become muscle memory is if you do it over and over and over again. I have found myself slipping on these 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, and that is not unexpected. We all slip in life. We must slip and fall now and then to understand that we must proceed with caution and awareness to achieve certainty, to the degree that it is even possible. Like weight loss, for example, it is not a straight line, and some days you just aren't feeling it. It is okay to feel that way because it is a natural part of the process of learning to incorporate new behaviors into a new way of life. Another example could be the Tortured Poets Department, the latest album by Taylor Swift. You might consider yourself a fan, but you just don't like this record. It's okay to fall off the Tay-Tay wagon now and then. You're still a Swiftie. And so on day 109 of 1,461 days of ignoring the Trump administration, let me remind you to press that not interested button when you encounter someone or something you want to ignore. For example, the Trump administration.